we go ahead and get started, we may have one more board member join us tonight, so I thank everyone for being here tonight at our first meeting. Part of what we're going to deal with tonight is a bit of, just a bit of getting to know each other and some scheduling questions and that sort of thing, but we also will hear from the board as well. First step tonight, as we convene our meeting, would be approval of the agenda. I'll need a motion in a second on that. You have to take a moment to look at the agenda. Second.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Steve. Thank you.
And Chris, second.
Thank you.
It's too fast.
I looked down for a moment.
Okay, all those. Any discussion on the agenda before we vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, great. So the agenda is approved as presented. Next on the agenda is public comments. Do we have public comments before we begin this process?
Received no requests.
Okay. Super. We're going to take just a couple moments and hear from the board, Linda Taylor and Jane Weil, as well as Superintendent Hank Bangser. And then we'll go around the room and we'll introduce ourselves. Is that what we're doing?
So, or in reverse.
In reverse would be better than the...
We just wanted to welcome everybody.
Okay. So why don't we just do a brief introduction. I'll start with Dave over on this side here. Just a brief introduction.
David White. I work with Food for Thought Ojai. I run an education program at the school districts Once Upon a Watershed. I've got 2 boys that have gone through the school district, San Antonio, Miners Oaks, Matilaha, Nordhoff, Chaparral.
My name is Gabriella Vargas. I'm a manicurist here in town. I'm part of the committee for the Mexican Fiesta. I have 3 kids who have gone through the school system in Ojai, Topa, Matilaha, and Nordhoff.
My name is Marianne Ratcliff. I have a daughter at Matilaha. My son attended Summit, and my daughter did too. And I am co-president of the Matilaha PTO with Anna Maria Seabright.
Steve Quilici, retired, no longer working. 40 years in aerospace was enough. I grew up outside of Ojai, as did our children. One born in Mountain View, one born in Dallas, and they grew up and went through school while we lived in Dallas and Cincinnati. They're now, each has 2 children, and so we have quite a family. My wife did attend school here in one of these classrooms, she can't remember which, before moving on. And I'm just glad to be here and do my best to help the committee.
Melanie Marx. I have 4 children, all of whom are in the district, one at San Antonio, one at Matilaha, and I have a junior and senior at Nordhoff High School.
Mike Krumpschmidt, retired teacher from the district. I taught here for 32 years. I'm actually currently now on hourly pay doing the adult ed high school diploma class. In fact, I just came from there. I have 2 children, adult children. They both went through the entire district, Miners Oaks, Matilaha, Nordhoff High School, as did my wife. She's a original from there.
Glenn Fout. I have a daughter who's a freshman at Nordhoff. Went to Miners Oaks, Matilaha, Nordhoff. We now live over by Marianne School in that neighborhood. Recently moved. And I'm also on the board of the Ojai Education Foundation.
I'm Chris Danch. I'm a native of Ojai. Went through the schools here starting in 6th grade in San Antonio, then Matilaha, then Nordhoff. Up to that point, up to 5th grade, I went through the Santa Ana School, which was the public school, which is now the Montessori School. And in kindergarten, I went to Mill School, which was now Brooks Institute. Predate the dam, even, in the lake. And I have 3 adult children. 2 went through one went through Matilaha and Nordhoff, one went to Matilaha and a couple of years at Nordhoff. 3rd child went through first through high school at Oak Grove. And in addition to that, I'm also an attorney. And in addition to that, I have co-founded and directed 3 nonprofits in town dealing with high school age youth. I have a long history of community involvement.
My name's Andy Cantwell. After that long history, I have the shortest history of the district. I'm the assistant superintendent for the district. Moved here 5 months ago with my wife and 2 children, 2 years and 4 months old, so we're a few years off from matriculating into the OUSD schools, but grew up in Ventura County, so always had this area, been home.
Great. Thank you.
Kathy Smith, shall I?
Yes, please.
I'm not part of the committee. I'm here taking the minutes for you this evening, and I work in the office of the superintendent.
Thank you very much. And in fact, that reminds me, Kathy's taking the minutes tonight. It would be great if we could find a committee member who would be willing to do minutes. Now, I know one of the communications said we might do this on a rotating basis. My preference is if we find someone who's good at it, who wouldn't mind taking minutes during the meeting, that would be ideal. Then we could free Kathy up from that responsibility. So do we have any volunteers for that at this point?
Got 8 years under my belt taking minutes, so yeah, I can do that.
Great, thank you.
But not tonight, Kathy.
You got it.
She needs some notice. Okay, good. Thank you,
No.
Marianne. Okay, so next let's hear from our superintendent, Hank Bankser, and our Board of Education members, Jane Weil and Linda Taylor. Sort of, maybe you can introduce us to the subject that we're charged with researching.
I think we'll go from left to right, or left to right.
Okay. Linda.
I just want to welcome all of you and thank you so much for your interest and your willingness to serve on this committee. It is certainly going to be an interesting, I think, discussion and examination of our elementary district sites. I just want you to realize that the board supports you, and we are here as your, if you need us for answering questions or whatever, but we're not going to tell you what you're going to be finding out. You're going to be making, at the end of your discussions and meetings, you're going to make a recommendation to the board, which will be entirely your recommendation. It won't come from us at all, and that's the way it should be, because this is a citizens committee that is designed to do just that, to go out into the community, take the temperature of the community, decide, are we doing the best for our students with the current configuration of the district? And that, I think that's, for me, that's a really important thing, is are we doing the best for our students? And if not, then how can we do better? But I don't know the answer to that. That's up to you to make that recommendation to us. So thank you again, and hopefully you'll enjoy this.
I agree. I wanted to thank you all very much for taking this on. It's a very complex issue in this valley, and there's a lot to learn, and that's what's so wonderful about being able to have this group and have you look at the materials, have you look at the sites, have you ask the questions, so that by the time it comes to the board, it's been sifted through and evaluated, and then we can take that same information and evaluate it, knowing that it's already been, sort of gently coaxed into some sort of position that makes it easier for us to look at. So that's really, you are going to be deciding, what information do you want? What do you want to see? What are your questions? What information is needed? We're not in a position to hand that to you. Hank is. So that's why he's going to take it from here. But I really appreciate your thoughtfulness in taking on this complex issue.
Well, obviously, I affirm in spades what Linda and Jane said about the endeavor you're about to enter here over the next however many months it takes. I guess the sort of the theme for my very short presentation here tonight would be transparency. Every single thing that you have received, the Ojai Valley News has received. Everything that you get will be public information. Okay, so just think in those terms. I sent the 2 fairly lengthy emails, plus all the attachments to Kim Rivers, who's here tonight, and Bill Warner, who wrote the brief article that appeared on Wednesday. And people who came here tonight will either pick up all the information that you have received, and there's some duplicates in your folder tonight, or may receive easily by just calling Kathy. So let me just talk for a second about two things. The materials you have and the legal constructs under which you operate. Let's start with the materials. Purposely, there's redundancy. I don't know how much people print or how much you want to print. Obviously, it was a sort of a chore to print an Alpha 80 document. That's why everybody received in hard copy, actual hard copy, this 3-ring binder, which goes back to May of 2014, which of course became the genesis of Measure J, which we thankfully passed. The other 2 documents in the different kinds of binders are the 2 materials generated by the Delenka Group. And as I mentioned at the October 6th board meeting, there's the strong recommendation coming out of the California Department of Education, and in fact implied by some statutes, is that these are the 2 types of materials, the 2 types of analyses that a 7-Eleven committee should receive. All right, so you have the June 30th report on school facilities capacity and the enrollment projection that was done in mid-August, actually for the August 18th meeting. All I can say is, and I said this in my opening email to you last week, anytime you have a question is the right time to ask it. Okay, you don't have to ask it tonight. You don't have to wait till the next meeting. Part of my job, obviously, is working with the board. When board members meet people on the street and a question comes up, and it's not their job to know, and I can't tell you that I always know, but I always get back to them, either for them to contact the individual with whom that person had a conversation, or the same with you. Okay, so I am your best contact, even though Andy, thank goodness, is sitting here, as a person who certainly can help you on any occasion, and then many times I'll just say, Andy, why don't you just take care of it? But in some cases, there are historical references, and I've been here now as my 7th year. Andy, as you said, just started a number of months ago. So I have a context that's a little bit broader in terms of amount of time. So what you have in your folder, now this is not the most elegant folder, but at least it's big. So you can just keep putting paper in there, or you can form your own. However you want to do it, everybody has his or her own way of collating information. Kathy, would you just pass around this blue paper is a delineation of the materials that I sent, including the 2 emails, one on October 16th and one a couple of days ago. So you can just sort of check and be sure that either you printed it and you have a copy of each of these, or it's in your folder, and when you get home, if you throw away the duplicate, obviously that's your call. Okay, so when Linda, Jane, and I met yesterday to sort of plan out this very brief agenda item, we all agreed that the best way for us to help you is to not talk a lot. Okay, so she didn't, and I'm about done. Which is unusual because superintendents have a tendency to rattle on. So my hope tonight is, and I asked you in the opening email, if you have any questions when you receive the materials, that was the right time to ask. I'm seconding that again tonight. I did not receive any specific questions, but more will come, I'm sure. So one reason we're here tonight is to help answer your questions, Glenn, as we finish this agenda. That would be number 1. Number 2, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the legal constructs for a 7-Eleven committee, which, is a bit different depending on the state you're in, but right now the only thing that pertains is California. So the way you should be thinking about this whole work that you're about to enter is that while you're not a sort of a shadow board of education, you're not, and Linda made that really clear, that you are working to recommend through your analysis which you think is the best course of action for the future of our elementary school sites. That's the overarching theme of your work. It is a recommendation. You're not elected officials. However, the way the statutes and the legal interpretations of the statutes have come forward over the years is the 7-Eleven committee operates under the same guidelines as a Board of Education. Okay, so I figured you had enough information for tonight, but we will be getting you at least a synopsis of what's known as the Brown Act, which is now a 60-year-old or so statement from the California legislature about the ways in which boards of education and other public bodies must operate, again, transparent do your business in public. What does that mean? It means that while you certainly have the flexibility as an individual member of this committee to speak with anybody who wants to talk with you about your public deliberations, that's fine. The number of conversations and the type of conversations that you have between and among each other outside of this room should be limited. Now, that's a broad statement. Technically, if at any point, and I don't really think this is going to happen, 6 of you ended up in the same place, like Bonnie Lou's, for example, to have a lunch, that's absolutely illegal. It's not really appropriate, I think, and the attorney would agree, to really have any more than 3, and probably 2 is the best you should shoot for. If you're going to talk with one other person, there's no problem with that. But when you start getting more than that, you start getting the impression that there are conversations that are unfolding among a minority of the group that the rest of the group doesn't know about. Then sometimes you come to a meeting and it looks like 3 of you sort of are thinking similarly because you are, right? And then the other 7 or 8, if you appoint an 11th member, or you ask the board to appoint an 11th member, Glenn, it just doesn't look good. So there are both legal constructs and then there's this thing called optics, right? So we want to have both be absolutely above board. So the conversations about the issues with which you're dealing should take place here, or take place between you and me. You ask a question, or Andy ask a question, we'll get that answer. Andy and I will decide when we get the question to whom the answer should go. It could go really just to that one committee member, if it's unique, very unique. It could go to Glenn and the committee member. And that's sort of the way I would tend to do it. I don't send everything to Fame, but the board president gets more emails than others. Or it could go to all of you. Okay, it's a judgment call. There's nothing that is contrary to the Brown Act at all for the superintendent or assistant superintendent to be the communicator to the whole group about a piece of information or a question that a particular member asked. Okay? All right, so that's sort of one piece of the puzzle. The next piece of the puzzle is your own emailing. And we've talked about this a lot among our board members. It's very, very important to not get into a reply all kind of mindset. And just don't do it. There's this thing called serial board meetings, right? Where a board member asks a question of another board member. Okay, so far we're okay. Board member number 2 answers board member number 1, who then takes that and sends it out to board member number 3, and all of a sudden, this is Board of Education now, all of a sudden you have a quorum of board members communicating about the same issue. Now in your case, board is 3, in your case it would be 6. But I would just say, again, if you want to ask questions through email, please do. You don't have to pick up the phone and call. Emails are just fine. It's up to Andy or me or both of us to be sure that we're operating correctly as the person on staff who's serving as the individual who's answering your questions, okay? So your own work in the community and among yourselves is one issue. The second one is emailing. I want to be sure, though, you don't feel too stultified here, because you have every opportunity you want as an individual member of the committee to speak anytime with anybody in the community, or for that matter, if you have a personal contact. Marianne's co-president of the Matilla PTA. You absolutely, and I think it'd be a good idea to let Glenn know, but you certainly have the opportunity to go meet as a board member or as a member of the 7-Eleven committee with an organization of that type. No problem. Okay, individual's fine. I would suggest you don't overpromise. That's a tough thing, right? And it's a tough thing sometimes when you're asked, how do you feel about this? But you may do that, right? And even 2 of you could do it. Right? So you sort of get the idea, right? Numbers are important, legal constructs are important, optics are important. and transparency is the ultimate goal. So I think that's it, Glenn.
So if we schedule, just as a hypothetical, if we schedule a site visit to a school.
Right.
Where we're going to take a tour and we're going to sort of get a look at a school site.
Yep,
So that's something that we need to give notice to.
absolutely. I would call it a
Basically-
special meeting, or a
Yeah.
meeting. Actually, the meeting of the 7-Eleven committee is really neither a regular meeting nor a special meeting, because you're not the board, but it's the meeting of the 7-Eleven committee.
Yeah.
But we would notice it.
And that's 72 hours?
That would be 72 hours, and anybody who would want to join that tour, not on the committee, would know well in advance and could join you.
Okay. Any questions about the legal requirements?
On the 72-hour notice, is that something that would be posted on the school district website?
Yes.
That's the means of notice?
This meeting was,
Yeah.
plus we give it to the Ojai Valley News. I followed that up with a phone call to ask for a little space in whatever the addition is or the additions are before that meeting. In this particular case, we didn't settle on the final date till a little while into the process. So we had the short article in yesterday's, but if we know well in advance, it could be a Wednesday and a Friday, or a Wednesday, Friday and a Wednesday. It could be a lot of publicity. So our website, Ojai Valley News, we send out, Kathy sends out notices to, I don't know, probably 40 people.
All schools, plus anyone who's requested to receive copies.
Exactly. So, and you're welcome to tell anybody. So, once you know that there's a meeting, it's a public meeting, just, be our best communicators.
Right.
Christie?
Anything else?
No, and the other thing was, as the meeting goes on, if there are any questions about any of the materials, we are going purposely, again, optics, to go to the back of the room, right? Because it's your meeting. The last thing I can say, there's one more thing. Just talking with a couple of superintendents who've had these 7-Eleven committees over the years, I don't know how all 5 board members are going to schedule their time to be in the audience. Okay, today we happen to have maybe more than the norm because we're here at 6:45. I don't plan to be at every meeting, okay? And it's sort of been suggested that's a pretty good idea, to not have 6 of us sitting there watching all the delivery. Not that I think any of you is a shrinking violet, and will not say whether, because you're on being taped anyway, which of course is one of the issues that you're going to cover. We can make, if you wish, we can make your meetings available for public viewing on our website. If you choose to do that. If you'd rather not do that, there's nothing in the law that says you're required to do so any more than a board of education is required to do so. So back on transparency, okay?
I mean, Chairman Fout, before our board members go to the back, is there going to be an opportunity to ask questions while they're here?
Sure.
And I don't know how you want to come in. So I had a few questions.
Great.
How many other recent 7-Eleven committees have there been? I know you were on one, Linda.
I was on one for the district office site, and that was only for this district office site.
Wasn't there one earlier?
If there was, I wasn't on
You
it.
weren't.
Yeah, that's the only one that I know of.
There's never been one for this purpose.
And
sure.
we've never had one for the 5 elementary schools.
Okay, 'cause I thought there had been.
Well, I'll double check. I don't know of any.
There was at one point during the 7-Eleven committee that met to discuss the district office, the question was raised, should we go ahead and look at the elementary schools? And the group was unanimous, they didn't want to do that at that time.
Okay, that's what I was
So that was, it was a question, that was the answer.
That's about 3.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how the school board came to the decision to convene this group now.
Okay. I remember.
Well, partly has to do with Measure J, because we have we have very great needs, financial needs in terms of repairs to our structures. And if, we need to be able to, with your recommendation, look at the best ways to utilize that money. And, we don't know. We don't know how to utilize that money,
So this would come prior to the actual decision on how to spend the Measure J money?
Well, we have, yes, it sort of goes along with it. I mean, we do have needs at the high school and the junior high, So certainly some of the repairs could happen there. Also at this site, I know that, I volunteer at Chaparral, and there's no water in the sinks because the sewage line doesn't work. So there's some very great needs.
So I guess is their question, like, you're going to be spending the money fairly soon? You're going to start?
But not really.
Not really.
Well, there are some, from the first bond measure that came in the late 90s, where they built the science labs and the music at Nordhoff. There are apparently some work, what I easily lay terms call sort of work orders that were never tied up with the state, and sort of said the project is complete and got stamped. So those have to be completed. The state won't let us move forward with new projects until that's done. So that's what we're looking at doing in the next 4 or 5 months specifically, is tying those up.
And you guys will be finished before that.
Because we just had the hypothetical, like if a school X were decided to be closed, the work would not already be working.
No, it's not going to happen. This projects to which Jane was referring is the terminology is DSA projects, so Department of State Architects, right? And we've had a lot of conversation with both our own, about the construction company we appointed, finalized the contract tonight, and actually all the potential contract managers we interviewed. Everybody said, we need to do that first. So the first type of work, as Jane said, is specifically that. It's old work that needs to be completed. I would say the great percentage of the months between now and June relative to Measure J will be just under the general heading of planning. Okay, now, there could be an emergency project that has to be done, but we would do that whether we close the elementary school next fall or the following fall. I mean, there are safety issues, right? But we will never commit significant dollars to an elementary school which really deals with a project of 10, 20, 30 years until this is all decided. Okay, that's number one. Number two, going back to your first question, the chronology of how this all came to be was sort of a confluence of factors. One, frankly, was a new school board. Okay, so when I knew that 2 members, long time, obviously Ricky and Kathy, were not going to be running again, and Pauline was up for re-election, it was pretty clear that we would have at least 40% new board members and maybe 60. It turned out to be 60. And I felt, and the board members agreed with me, former board members, that this is an issue that really should be decided by the new board. Okay, they'll be sitting here working with the community as the decision is implemented and as the implications of the decision unfold. So that was one piece of the puzzle. The second piece was Measure J. Right? So we knew that was going to be a very important factor in how we could allow our facilities to be most effective. That was sort of the overarching set of timing issues. Then what happened was, as the new board formed, and we had a lot of issues we had to deal with pretty early on, at the March 2015 board meeting, we set aside quite a bit of time, and Thane managed this agenda item, where each board member was presented with several questions about the future of the district and how to go about analyzing the future of the district. And in particular, asking questions, for example, going back to the 7-Eleven committee that I chaired and Linda was on with 8 other people, when we looked at this facility here. We went back, asked some questions about that, because there were some questions raised about the way in which that unfolded. And the board unanimously, with maybe one half statement one way or the other, but predominantly unanimously said, we don't want to do that again. It's done. Okay? Now, it could have been done differently. I think it was done well, but it could have been done with maybe different participants. Anyway, we have the answer from those 10 people about the combination, we just call it District Office Chaparral. Okay? That was one thing. The second thing that was unanimous was that this property should not be sold. So it's not going to be up for sale. But there was strong consensus among the board members, I would say, putting it in these terms, that the board would consider leasing this property under the right conditions, whatever those were. Okay? That took care of this property. And then the question was presented, in the same context, looking at big, broad issues that the district was facing, obviously given our decreasing enrollment, right, which is now a little bit under 2,600 from a little over 3,000 when I came and 4,200 in 1997, those numbers are real. The question presented to the board at that March board meeting was, how do you feel about convening another 7-Eleven committee to deal with the enrollment of our students? Okay, and in particular, elementary schools, recognizing as said, we will have a junior high and we will have a high school. You know, whether we had a 2-grade junior high or a 3-grade middle school, open question. We know about that analysis, and so that's how it came to be. And one of those things I can get you now as a follow-up, I'll send you the page from the March board meeting agenda, March 2015 agenda, that will show you that chart. Okay, and you'll see where each board member came out on those questions.
So chaparral is not in this discussion at all?
Well, in my opinion, when we say we're going to have a junior high or middle school, we're going to have a high school, and we're going to have, I believe, an alternative high school. Okay, now, whether it will be here, or when we took a look at options in that 7-Eleven committee, we did take a look at a place, I wasn't here, but Mike, if you remember, chaparral wasn't always here, right? It was in buildings in the city, right? So.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, right, so you could
It was
have.
kitty corner from the Oaks, actually.
I think that's right.
Where the print shop was.
Right, exactly. So, you know, chaparral is not that very many classrooms. You could have Chaparral High School in another place. In my opinion, Chaparral High School serves a very critical role in this community, and I think we should have a small alternative high school, but that's just my opinion. And so,
The reason that I bring up chaparral is feasibly, one of the options could be, I'm not saying that it would be, but it might be to put chaparral in a school site that is existing. So would that even be something that we would contemplate?
you might, if we, well, actually, we couldn't fit it in San Antonio. You couldn't fit it in Summit. You couldn't fit it in Toba right now. There's not, as you can see in this analysis, there's not enough space. There are probably, depending on how you read this report, remember I told you there are a lot of ways to read numbers, but I would say that physically, you could probably put chaparral at either Miners Oaks or Marmoni. You could, given the number of classrooms that are necessary. But
Because this might not be here as the school district office, it might be leased.
could be,
Nobody knows.
could be. A lot of hoops to jump through before that happens.
And what's the, where is that? Like, where is that?
Right now, it's, well, we didn't do anything, I'm biased, but I think the right decision was made to not move ahead within the first year or two, which then became 2.5 at least, after that 7-Eleven committee, because the real estate market was so horrible. Now, anything you read, the real estate market's going through the roof, okay? So I think it's my responsibility with AIM to decide with the board if and when to put the issue of leasing this property on the agenda of the board, which then means we have an outstanding attorney with whom we worked 3.5 years ago. And he would come and explain all the things that have to happen, including making the space available to public sector bodies, i.e. the city or the county. And then there are a whole lot of other things that have to happen.
We actually did mention it at the end of our last meeting.
We did.
That we would like it to be
We
put
did,
on a
yeah.
future agenda.
Right, so it will get back on. And public information, it was taped. There was, in June, this past June, there was a combined City Council Board of Education meeting where by far the predominant conversation had to do with an initiative that's coming out of the city, Historical Preservation Committee, city, to consider identifying chaparrals for landmark status, which then puts another hoop in the process, okay? So there's certain things that the Board of Education can control and do on its own, and then there are all these other auxiliary things that enter into the process. But clearly, whatever we do, it's right in the middle of the city, and we always knew that anything we ever intended to think about would be in conjunction with the city.
But in terms of this committee, it's not something I would put at the forefront to talk about. Whether chaparral would end up at elementary, I think the focus needs to be on the elementary.
Right, I mean, you know,
rather than worrying about.
Again, as Glenn said, you can put whatever you want. You can put whatever you want on the agenda. That was not the primary purpose of the committee, but if you were talking about full utilization of an elementary site, for example, and it became clear that chaparral needed to go somewhere because the board was leasing the space, and there wasn't any space in the city like of the type that was used before, of course, it could be in an elementary school setting. Couldn't be in Matilla either. There's not enough space. So there are two options. Assuming the attendance areas stay the same, it's either Vermont or minor trucks.
Thank you.
Any more questions? How about anyone else? Any questions for Hank or the board members? Steve?
Thank you. Dr. Bankser, since you've been through a part of this thought process already with respect to this site, you said the previous committee said this property should not be sold, but it might be leased.
No, that's not what the committee said.
I'm sorry?
No, let me clarify. The committee report, but I'll get you that too, so you'll have that for your record. Vote of the 10 members was 9-1, and the very clear statement from that group of 9 was that the board should strongly consider, maybe even more strongly than that, but at least strongly consider, the sale or lease of all or part of the almost 8 acres here. That was the spring 2012 statement from the committee. What I was talking about was the March 2015 statement of this Board of Education. They decided no sale, do not sell, do not sell, but consider leasing under conditions that would be favorable.
Okay, but so you've been through some of these exploring the legal requirements to either sell or lease school district property. You've done some looking at it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we have spent time with attorneys. I didn't spend a lot of money on attorneys because I knew we weren't moving ahead at that point.
I'm just wondering, is it possible to lease facilities without having to rezone the property on which those facilities reside, as opposed to selling properties?
Yeah, great question. That was one of the things we talked about with the attorney. And it's, as I said, my general impression, having gone through both the 7-11 analysis when Rob Clark, it's actually right about when Rob started. He came, met with the committee, talked with the attorneys. You know, there are certain absolutes, and then there are certain things that you try to do to be good neighbors, right? So, you know, could the hypothetical school district push through a process by which you sold or leased your property? I doubt it, but maybe. We wouldn't do that. You know, we would go to the city and work with them, right? Okay. And we'd have to get it rezoned because it's not zoned now for what we think is likely to be the proposal, which is some mixed use, right? Some combination.
Well, I've heard lots of things, but it was my impression that there are very few things you can do with PL zoned property.
Yeah, you're right.
So
I think that's true.
That would have to be changed.
One thing we did do is when the city had the consultant come in to look at potential areas for moderate and low income housing, part of this property was included in that overlay. So it's already potentially just this property because we'd already had the meeting.
Part of it abuts residential property already,
so
sure.
The area that is the preschool, the maintenance buildings, and the bus yard has all been included in that city overlay as a potential site for moderate to low income housing. So that, you know, I guess that basically means that it's been rezoned in their eyes. So
it's been repurposed, but not legally rezoned.
Right,
yeah.
Right, yeah.
I'm also curious, I don't spend a lot of time driving around the city looking for particular things, but one thing I don't see much of is school buses. Are the school buses that are here, and I don't know, there's 5 or 10 or
Not
12,
really.
or, I don't know. Are they used for things other than field trips?
No, they're used to predominantly to get students from where they live to the school. But we don't have that big, we don't have that big a bus thing. Andy, you know it.
We have 4 bus routes and 4 van routes. The majority of the van routes are special ed that go outside of the district, but the 4 bus routes are morning and afternoon, school to home, or home to school.
Okay.
About 220 or so students take advantage of the home to school transportation.
So less than 10%.
Right.
I mean, the boundary from the school to the student's home is far enough, and the community is small enough, so there aren't that many that live outside of that boundary. And so, like I said, less than 10% of all of our students participate in the regular school bus program.
Okay, I just think I live over, just off of Foothill Road. And I have been told that my home is in the Topa district. And that's not necessarily a walk I'd want to make every morning, much less have a school-age child do that. So.
Yeah, we didn't say that everybody who fails to take a bus walks. You know, there are things called parent driving.
Yes, right. That's what we would be doing, sure. Okay.
I had another question.
Oh, sure.
What is now the rule according to the Department of Education on how capital expenses can be paid? They suspended the rule that they had to be only spent on capital. So for instance, if we closed a hypothetical school, once upon a time, we could only spend it on capital expenses. I understand it was suspended, but I don't know what the status is now.
The last time we examined this actually during the 7-11 committee, the local one, right? And as I understand it now, they're in the 4th iteration of the extension, right? So that, and I'm not sure when the year ends, either 2006, January 1st, 16 or 17 or 18. In any case, several times the law has been created to be more flexible, where you now have the opportunity, if you receive revenues from a sale or lease of property, you may use them for general education purposes. There was a point in time where you could only use it for facilities. Now, we don't know that it'll continue to be extended, but so far it has been. Right? And I'll get you that information too.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I've gone through the materials, but admittedly pretty quickly, and so I could have missed what I'm going to ask for. I noticed that there's a needs assessment, and certainly the enrollment projections and so forth, but I don't see any of the costs associated with any of the schools of plants costs in terms of just plant costs and also attendance salaries for the given projections. Do we get those?
Sure, absolutely. In the budget, Andy, that's where I would be turning to Andy, right? We have delineations in both areas, and that's important for you to see. General operations, heating, electricity, et cetera.
Exactly.
Okay, and salaries, which make up, well, by the time you add in the actual salary and benefits, it represents about 86% of our budget, so that's about where most of it is.
Okay.
Do we have other questions?
I did have one more. I don't know if there are any sales restrictions on any of the
You can tell she
properties.
used to be a newspaper person.
Is there any sales restrictions on any of the properties? For instance, Thousand Oaks had, school district had a property that was donated, and part of the deed was that it had to be offered back to the family before it could be sold.
Really? I don't know that. I don't know. We'll.
There's rumors that there are.
Yeah, there's a particular rumor about a particular elementary school that we tried to track down, and turned out the rumor was incorrect. All right, so there was not a limitation that was perceived to be in place. But way before you ever get to that issue, I guarantee you we'll be able to answer that question.
Sure. Yeah.
Is Miners Oaks and Miramani outside of city limits?
Those are.
Obviously, San Antonio.
Topa, Chaparral, Nordoff, and Matilda are internal.
The rest is county.
Other questions?
I second Michael's request on the information on actual plant cost, operating
sure.
cost of each school. It's important.
And maybe that's That's a good starting point for us tonight, is if you have requests for information, things that, hopefully tonight we can create a roadmap for how we're going to tackle this issue. And some of this will require a little bit of planning to gather the information, and that has bearing on when we have our meetings. I know I went through the reports that were presented to us, or that were provided to us from the Lincoln Group.
Glenn, before you start, I'm just going to move us back, because now you're going to sort of work within yourselves.
And there's two things, one, just based on our conversation. 11th member, question mark.
Yeah. And
Televising, question mark.
So let's take the television question first, so let's deal with these real quick.
You don't need me for this.
So we have the opportunity for the meeting to be taped and for it to be available via the district website after the, I think it's obviously not live, but it's the tape of the meeting would be available to anyone who wants to go to the district website to see it. And the district can also contact Channel 10, the cable people. I don't have Channel 10, so I don't know, but I don't have cable. It could also be potentially put up there as well. Do we have any thoughts about that, positive or negative?
Does it cost?
No.
I think we ought to have all of the meetings taped and available to the public. It's just basic transparency stuff.
I see a lot of people shaking their
And
heads.
there are a lot of people who watch every city council meeting, for example, on Channel 10. And they don't attend the meetings, but they're very much up on what's going on with the city council.
Okay.
And I think it's important that the population have the opportunity to know in detail what's going on with this committee.
Sounds like a motion to me.
Yeah, I move that we have all of the 7-Eleven committee meetings taped and available for public consumption by whatever the normal rules are around here. I don't know.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion, questions about that before we vote?
That's good.
The normal disposition under the Brown Act would be that they're available for free viewing on some medium at the district office. And if you want to have a copy of it, you can order a copy of it within so many days, and then there's standard charges within the district to do that under the public.
Sure, repro charges, yeah.
But we're talking about having it like a school board meeting would be broadcast?
Exactly.
Our school board meetings now are broadcast, as you said, on Time Warner, Channel 10.
Time Warner.
And we have them listed, they are YouTube videos available on our website.
Click the link and you get to YouTube, and there's the...
So let me clarify the motion. The motion is to have them taped or taped and broadcast.
Taped and broadcast and available to the public by other means that are normal here within the school district.
I still second the motion. Just want to clarify it.
Yeah, good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries, thank you. What's
The
second thing?
11th board member.
Yeah, the 11th board member. Now, we unfortunately lost a board member so late. Elizabeth Moore unfortunately had to step down for family reasons, that we do have an opportunity to, we either go with 10 or we can appoint an 11th board member. And I'll even preface it by saying that a member of the audience said to me right before the meeting that expressed an interest in being on the committee, and we have applications from people who applied as well. So how do you feel about having that 11th board member? Feeling strong or
My experience is it's best to have an odd number.
for the vote?
And there were double the number of applications as people chosen, so there's obviously plenty to choose from, so.
Yeah, I think we ought, I have no idea who in the audience expressed an interest. I'm hoping it's someone who put in an application already. But I think we ought to start by looking at the applications of those that were not selected in the first round, if you will.
Okay.
So Steve, it would be the board, it would actually be the board that would make the 11th member. We would have to elect them the same way we elected you, so.
You guys could suggest somebody.
Yeah.
We would suggest somebody, or?
I don't think any of us know who the other,
So,
Or you
or
could
the other
suggest that
applicants
you're
were.
feeling that we should take it from for other applicants, or reopen it, whatever your suggestion is, we have a discussion and we
Yeah.
Right.
vote.
I believe what's being suggested is that we're recommending that we have the 11th person appointed by you people, and that the first place to look is those who've already made application.
I support us looking at 11th as well. One thing I would want us to consider is the delay with which that selection can be made. As you guys saw, 6:45 tonight is when we had a special board meeting that was able to nominate now our 10th member. And I would believe that they would take the same course if we were to select an 11th, and I would hate for us to be too substantially delayed, or for them to be so far behind on, if we have multiple meetings prior to them being able to be appointed to our board, that they may feel they've missed out on part of the dialogue.
When's our next meeting?
When do you, well, we don't have a next meeting
No, no,
yet.
the
When is your next
school board.
meeting?
November 18th.
November 18th?
Yeah, but we can do the same thing we just did. Takes 3 minutes to.
I would also say, I mean, I guess it's like, I don't believe we've heard from Gina. So if she's not going to be able to attend, then maybe that makes the
Oh,
numbers
absolutely.
9 and we just leave it at that odd number. But maybe
Odd numbers
Kathy or I could
definitely
reach out
best.
tomorrow and see.
Because currently we have 10, and so I would like to have the 11th person, so if we could do the special meeting, if the board is okay with that, then that's how I'd like to move forward.
Was there any indication that Gina, beyond not being able to make this meeting, would not be able to make subsequent meetings?
We haven't heard from her, I believe.
Okay.
At all, right?
We'd have to inquire.
And I would be inclined to say that if she's unable to serve, rather than staying at 9, that we take 2 people from the other people that already applied. If you're going to go through the process, it would be just as easy to pick 2 as it is 1, and then we're back at 11.
And we do it all at once.
And the more diverse opinions you have available for consultation, the better off you're going to be.
Okay. How about a motion?
I move that we recommend to the board that they choose 2 more people from the previous applicants so that the composition of the board will equal 11, unless Gina decides she can serve and then simply pick 1.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any more discussion? Questions, discussion, opinions? Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, good. Now we're to that point of the agenda where really just open discussion. What are we missing so far? What other information would you like to see? And then maybe toward the end of that, we can pick some meeting dates moving forward. Think about your calendar.
For me personally, the biggest thing that I wanted to handle from this meeting was the calendar, so that I can project ahead and make it work around my other commitments.
Sure. Okay. I'll show you that.
And other than Thanksgiving week and the beginning of the following week, I'm available all the time.
Is that a retirement schedule?
Well, I'm also on the Building Appeals Board, which meets here regularly.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm hoping we can maybe pick a schedule of regular meetings. It's been suggested to me that we meet twice a month. And I'm thinking that it would be helpful to know what we're going to do at that next meeting, what information we're going to dig into at that next meeting. Make sure that we have if we're going to go into the data regarding costs, if we have, is it realistic for us to have that data in, say, a couple weeks?
Sure.
Okay. Seeing most everyone here on a Thursday night, does this night generally work for you all, and this evening and time? Thursdays at 7?
Yes, it varies for me.
Does it, yeah, week to week? Okay. With notice, does that help if we?
Yeah, I pull up my calendar and look at it.
Yeah.
Do that. But.
Okay. Then I might suggest, what if we were to, let's do that, let's pull up the calendars and see.
Is there another day of the week that doesn't vary? So maybe we could pick up every one of those Thursdays twice a month.
Yeah.
And see how that works for
Yeah.
David.
But if we're looking
4 weeks
at
from now is Thanksgiving, so that's not good.
Yeah.
Is that right?
5.
No.
Six.
Oh, that's right.
26.
So for instance, on the
That's
5th,
5
November
weeks.
5th, which is in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
That Food for Thought's showing a movie at Matilla Junior High. So that's Just Eat It, and I hope you'll all go to that. So let's not do a meeting here.
And Parks and Rec meets that night.
So that's not a good opinion for me.
Thursday, the 5th, we're talking about? So Dave, you're saying you're out?
I will be.
You're out?
I'm okay.
Okay. If we push the first meeting, I know the 12th is yeah, if we push the first meeting to the 12th, and then in that case, we're probably only getting one meeting in November. And how does that look for the group?
I can't do it.
I can do it.
I can do it.
I'll just be there.
Can do it.
Just work my schedule around it.
When are you out of town?
Leaving Wednesday afternoon on the 4th and back on the Sunday evening. Heading to Northern California.
What's the date on the, what do you?
That's the 4th through the 8th on November.
Okay.
So what's the 9th? What day of the week is that?
That's a Monday.
Well, now, if we were to move to Tuesdays, I have all the city meetings I know that are on here, and city council is on alternate Tuesdays, planning commission is alternate Wednesdays, HPC and Parks and Rec are on Thursdays. But if we picked Tuesdays where the city council wasn't meeting, then there's 2 or 3 of those every month.
I believe that our school board meetings on Tuesdays are intentionally timed to be in some of those alternate weeks. So I have the school board meetings
And those are
in here, so
Those are 2 Tuesdays?
So the
one
third
Tuesday a month.
Okay.
When is it on?
Well, you said the 18th was the next one.
17th is the next one.
17th.
I was wrong, 17th, excuse me, 17th.
17th is the next
17th,
one.
right.
So is everyone available on the 9th, or on Monday?
Mondays don't work for me.
The 10th?
Oh, Wednesdays, nobody mentioned Wednesdays. Did they?
Wednesdays are very good for me.
The holiday, isn't it the Veterans Day, so it's a holiday on the.
That is the
So it
11th, it's a
matter
holiday.
for-
But that's one.
What about the 4th? Well, you're leaving.
What about
on
the
4th.
10th?
Leaving on the 4th.
Does 10th doesn't work for you?
And I'm on a board that meets on the second
This
Tuesday.
is like getting the planets.
Yeah.
We knew this would be the most challenging part of our discussion.
Well, we're also beginning the holiday season, which is really bad, just in terms of scheduling.
So far,
Wait, so the 10th works?
That 10th works for me.
10th
10th works for David.
10th's good for me.
As does. Happy birthday.
I'll bring you a cake.
I'll bring you a cupcake.
We'll decorate.
Oh, man.
It could also depend on the time that we meet.
Right.
Well, let's keep it, for the moment, if we don't have major objections, let's try to keep it at 7 o'clock or 7:05.
7:05.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Just commute over.
What about on Thursdays? Who couldn't do November 12th?
I can't.
David.
November
I
12th.
can,
You can?
on the 12th.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Anytime the week of the 9th, I'm good.
Sounds like we might need to start taking an actual hand poll and start counting, because
Yeah.
it seems like there's not going to be a single day
What
that
about
every
13th?
person can
But the
do.
12th, who's down at the 12th?
Me.
Okay.
What about the 13th?
Oh, because of the movie.
Friday the 13th?
Oh, weekends are impossible for me. Definitely.
And that's in 3 weeks' time, right? So
Right.
actually, in 2 weeks' time, on the Tuesday, the 3rd, I could do that. Just
Mhm.
so we're not, because that.
It's election day.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Fine with me. Sure. Tuesday the 3rd, as our next meeting, how does that look?
That works for me.
Before anyone says no.
Okay. Tuesday, the 3rd at 7.
Since we're talking about it, can I just throw this out? What about Tuesday the 17th for the meeting after that?
That's the school board.
That's the school board
School board is going to be right
Yeah, and I've
here.
got a.
Yeah, okay, just thought I'd try. And then,
do it.
and then we talked about the night, we talked about the 12th as the next meeting.
Which is Thursday, right?
Yeah, so we could do Tuesday the,
Or
I'm
the third.
toggling back and forth, sorry. Tuesday the 3rd,
Right, which is,
Thursday the 12th, and that would be our 2 meetings in November?
12 didn't work, right?
yeah, I
David
can
can't
come
make
to the
it.
second one.
What about 18 or 19?
Fine with,
I'm out.
19th is good for me.
you're up.
I'm out of town, yeah.
From when to when?
From the from the 18th to the 21st,
Okay.
22nd.
How about this? How about if we schedule the 3rd, and then I'll poll members via email.
The
for
19th will
future
work
of
for
that.
me.
Okay.
You use those doodle polls?
Those
You use
work really well.
Those
Yeah.
work really well.
Do you know those?
I don't, what do you call it?
Doodle, doodle.com, I guess it is. And then it's free, and you just put email addresses in. And
Okay.
And then
Okay.
people just send their availability and it charts it out for you. You can see where the whole aligns and stuff.
Okay, super. And of course, I hope that eventually we can get to a point where we're scheduling on a consistent night, but
for at
the
least
most
we got
important thing
another-
is to have everybody here.
At least we got another meeting scheduled.
Yeah.
I've got a legal question, maybe Dr. Bankser can help us.
Okay.
If Glenn, it's Glenn, right?
Yeah, right.
If Glenn were to send an email to all the board members talking about schedules.
That's fine.
That doesn't break the Brown Act.
No, it doesn't.
It's
As long
just
as it's a logistical,
Yeah.
it's a logistical.
I would hope
item.
not, but
No.
It has to be a deliberative act where we're decision-making and discussing, but just logistics
Yeah.
doesn't count.
Okay.
any meeting of a quorum that begins deliberations outside of public view is what's
Right.
the real bad thing to do. Okay?
So we on for the 3rd at 6?
Tuesday the 3rd.
7:05.
TBS.
That's good, we won't be late. What else do we want to talk about tonight? What other information would you like to request? You know, some of these things will take some time. What questions do you have in terms of how we proceed?
I guess what kind of boundaries? Are we going to go for broke in terms of our discussions when we're talking about facilities? I mean, I don't know. When you're talking about facilities, you're also talking about the use of those facilities. So our recommendations might go beyond just whether that facility is utilized or not. I mean, there are all sorts of discussions. There are things that the board would obviously be the decision makers on, but that could figure into our recommendations. So, you know, we could talk about a K-8 facility. We could talk about a magnet facility. We could talk about, there are all sorts of things that go into a facility review.
And your comment sort of, you know, one of the things that we don't have in front of us is this facilities master plan, which is in part being, I suppose, coming together based on the work that we're going to do as well. So that sort of lends itself to that topic.
Would it be possible to get whatever there is of a facilities master plan right now, understanding that our deliberations may inform the completion of that plan?
Yeah, Steve, as I said in one of the emails, the facilities master plan, if that's the right title, is being formed by the combination of things, right? By the successful Measure J, by your work, by the work that we did a couple of springs ago, to take a look at the middle school. So, you know, unlike some bigger districts that have 26 schools and you have to decide whether you're going to have 26 or 24 or 22 and maybe K-8s or not, you know, what we've had now is a contribution of a variety of sources. So I couldn't tell you, and I've shared this when I was sitting at the table at board meetings, there isn't any such thing as a present facilities master plan. Right? And so we're small enough and we know what the contributing factors are well enough that I think it will form itself quite well once we figure out how people like you feel about the elementary school sites. We now know how a group of 20 people generally felt about the advantages of middle school compared with the present junior high, money being available, right? And so your contributions, that contribution, and what we know about the work that has to be done across the district from Measure J, that will ultimately be our facilities master plan.
I wanted just to give you an idea where I was going, but I don't know if it's too broad, so I wanted to see what the rest of the board, I mean, I was thinking more of like a brainstorming ideas for what we had. But when I was reviewing this material, I was seeing all of these different schools, and I was realizing that we're an entirely different school district than we were 10 years ago, because our enrollment has declined by more than half or half.
No, it's about 40%.
About 40%.
Okay, 40%. It seemed like it was 4,000 plus down to 2,000. Okay. So all of that provides a lot of different opportunities. So it's almost like if you told your community of Ojai that you have all of these facilities and you have this many students and we have this much money in our budget. So obviously those are issues for the school board to address, but we might have some brainstorming ideas in this forum to share with them as a community, reimagining what our school district could be. And this could almost be like a school possibilities committee.
I would actually welcome that. I think it's time to take a really broad look at where we are and how we're serving the community and the needs of this generation coming up that's currently in school. And so I would welcome such a brainstorming session about how we could do this and address issues such as declining enrollment proactively instead of just saying this is what we have to deal with.
And the other reason that I throw that out is because when we were in such a budget crunch in 2008, when really the floor had fallen out from the bottom of the school district, the district literally had a list of draconian cuts, and you remember, because you were sitting in this room and obviously everybody else does, where they had just horrendous things that we were going to cut. And one of the things, was almost a reflexive response was, we've got to close the school, we've got to consolidate, we've got to preserve our resources. And that caused a lot of anxiety, that caused a lot of negative response. And then people got immediately put on a defensive mode, and it became adversarial, it became stressful, and it cast sort of a negative, well, it was because there was a negative atmosphere given the budget. But I could see this could be cast in a really positive light in terms of how we are looking at going forward.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of echoes, I don't know if it's a question, but just a comment, that when I came onto this committee, that it seemed to me that it was deciding the future of elementary schools. Then I saw it reported in the paper, and then we get a document also that is how to close schools. School closure committee, how to close schools. And so that's caused me, it shocked me a little bit. I mean, it's certainly something to consider, but it seems like there's a blanket thrown over the committee that's like, okay, closure. So I like the fact that it's about repurposing schools, and I think that there needs to be care taken when we are putting ourselves or framing ourselves as the school closure committee, for instance, which I don't really want to, I don't like that title.
Just to, I guess, I watched too much of the Benghazi committee. To set the record straight.
Yes, yes, thank you.
The same article, I think maybe to which you're referring, and I referred to earlier, it wasn't very long, but I had two quotes in there, both of which were purposely redundant, right? Saying that there is no upfront assumption of anything. Certainly not an assumption of a school closure. That's number one. The reason I sent you the article is because if you Google 7-Eleven committee, one of the first things you're going to find is that article. Okay, and I also qualified it by saying there are probably 10 times as many things in that article as you absolutely needed to know, because it's written for a statewide audience. But the law is that if a school board ultimately does dispose of property or repurposes it, not for a school, then a 7-Eleven committee must have preceded that.
Yeah.
So that's the record.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
And then I don't know what our role would be if this is something that the school board would do, or if this is something that this committee would do. But when we're talking about brainstorming, I think it would be good to have a community meeting where people are brainstorming in the community, not just those who were chosen. Obviously, we had a lot of other people who wanted to serve on this committee. People who live in their neighborhoods and utilize their schools for a number of things could have ideas even beyond this larger group. So I don't know if that's something, like I said, that the school board would want to convene, or if that's something that it would be within our powers to convene. But I would love to have a community meeting where the brainstorming was even larger than what we can accomplish here.
I think it's a good idea. I think we probably want to have it facilitated. So the question would be if there's anything in the budget to allow us to have that facilitated.
Yes.
Okay.
Or is there somebody in the district now who is a facilitator?
I have no doubt there is. I mean, there are people out
We
there.
may find people that qualify to just do it on a volunteer basis, but I'm just wondering if it comes to that.
Oh, yeah, it's not expensive.
Okay.
I'm wondering, as we look at repurposing, if it would be useful and if it's possible to get a list of organizations or community groups that currently use school properties, school buildings, facilities,
Sure.
with the school that they use. And that, I think, would be an interesting thing for us to look at.
I would expand that to any kind of collaboration or partnership with a private nonprofit entity that the school district has, that would be included in that list,
Yeah.
which would probably be the same list, but not necessarily, could just be programs as well.
Yeah.
Just one other thing, Marianne, in response to your comment, which I think was a great one, about having a community forum. This committee could do it, or the board could do it, but under the second aegis, the board actually must do it. You know, if you look at the calendar, that 7-month calendar at the back of that article, David, we were talking about, there's a statement there that clearly says the board should be receiving input from the community between the recommendation of this committee and the time the board makes a decision. But that does not preclude this committee from doing it upfront.
I would love to do it very early on in this process, and that would also assuage the anxiety that might be there for people who are reading 7-Eleven school closure committee.
Right.
And instantly know that they're a part of that discussion. And even broaden our minds on what some of the possibilities are.
If we're talking about creating a roadmap for,
I don't think we want to just sit here the 9 or 10 or 11 and talk amongst ourselves every couple of weeks.
Which, related to what we're saying, which I strongly support, I think that we also have the flexibility that we don't have to meet here each meeting, correct? We could, if we want to, have each of our meetings at a different school site, which may be better for community involvement at that site, may be helpful for us to be able to see the facilities and get a better sense of what we're discussing, but I do believe...
The only thing that runs into is then the taping.
Right, that's the problem. Yeah.
There you go.
Because we talked about the same thing
Okay.
in board meetings.
That's the problem.
Unless Jen
That makes
is going to
sense.
show up and tape it.
But we might, at least, as we schedule these meetings, and the next one on the 3rd, I think we ought to be getting grounded in what we plan to do. But after that, we might, in noticing a meeting, say that we're going to emphasize School A or School B in our discussions that evening, and specifically invite people that are in that district to come make their feelings known.
I'm thinking that they could do it, though, that it's so easy to tape meetings that the broadcaster would not have a problem. But I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't be live. It would be taped and then put on TV or put on the
I think it'd
website.
be well worth the...
The school board meetings are not live right now, they're taped, is that right?
Yeah, this is a-
And I think at some point, we're going to want to tour school sites. I want to have a clear understanding of what this report, the terminology that's used in that report, I want to look into a classroom. I mean, clearly a vacant classroom, I have a very clear idea of what that is. But to be able to walk a school site and really see how many classrooms are either being non-utilized or underutilized would be an interesting thing for me. And some of those aren't going to be practical, I think, to be taped. A group of people walking around
But I do like the idea of meeting at different school sites.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
necessarily all of them, but at different sites
like
to
that too.
bring in
But
more
if
people.
we're working through the winter on this, 7 PM may not be the best time to go tour a school either. It's going to be pitch dark.
Hopefully wet.
Yeah, so we'll have to have some flexibility on scheduling the times for those. And
Well, you might ask for that in that when you're asking people for the next meeting,
Yeah.
whatever you're called doodles or whatever,
Yeah.
ask about daytime.
I'm very flexible during the day.
Doodle, singular.
Same here.
And then,
Construction employees, what do I hear?
I want to make sure I'm working on the correct assumption that we could have all of these meetings and we could decide, just like you do on any proposal, this change or no change at all.
I don't think we're limited to any assumption at all on that.
We just need to remember that we're not making any policy here.
Yeah.
We'll decide on recommendations to the school board.
Right. But our recommendations could be anything from the status quo to something completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I have
So,
one question about numbers. I just wanted to know, is this, so we were instructed to look at need C when we looked at all the information. I'm wondering, is that just our budget? Is that why we're looking at C? This is our budget, there's
C
no...
became, C, the 35 million became the number that our consultant for bond, when he did sort of a study of the tolerance, tax tolerance, he called it, of the community. He said 35 million was toward the upper limit of what he felt a positive vote, would yield a positive vote, which it did. Actually yielded by 10+% more than it needed to, but that was great. So that's how it came to be.
Okay.
So if we're talking about other things that we'd like to request, we have a lot of facility information, we have some enrollment information, a few financial figures. What I think would be really helpful is academic performance. We're going to talk about ultimately some of the factors that come into play as far as what's in the best interest of our students. I think academic performance at the schools, as well as just demographic information, performance broken down by subgroups and that sort of thing, could be really, really helpful.
Easy to get that information?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, it'll be part of the November 17th board meeting agenda.
I just have a question.
November 3rd.
November board meeting on the 17th,
Okay.
Tuesday the 17th, in this room.
New information, new data?
Yeah,
That's being
from the
presented?
spring, well, very new, like all new tests from
Okay.
the spring of 2015.
Okay, that's stuff we just got that in the mail to the individuals.
I have a question. In case of the repurpose, let's say the back of the school, and they do the low income or affordable income housing like they did in Fulton, in the future, will that affect the enrollment of our schools? Or we will making decision on something based on this low enrollment and maybe in the future get overpopulated schools because more people move into Ohio, or kids who are just born now are gonna be ready for school? We will be looking into that, to those possibilities.
That's a great question. I think that's exactly what we are looking into. The interesting point of, if we did have some changes here is, I think the analysis is that it's going to have a minimal overall impact, but I think that's what we will want to keep discussing, and we can look at actual data to that. The enrollment analysis and the projected enrollment is looking at going out a decade. So the Delinka group that provided us the information looked at birth rates, looked at my daughter who was born 4 months ago, what's her class going to look like when she enters Nordhoff? And so it is looking at a forward-looking projection, not just simply what's happened over the past 15 years. But I agree, we should be looking at that.
And one more thing, because I know that Ojai, being such a small community, has so many private schools that they affect directly the enrollment in the public schools. What can we do in order to change that from the public schools to be more appealing to people who have the possibilities to put their kids in private schools, to make that change and be able to attend public schools?
Yeah, that's a great point, which maybe that's actually another thing we could request from the district, and I actually don't honestly know if we have this, but Do we have enrollment information on the private schools of students whose DOR is Ojai?
Oh, sure.
I think that would be helpful.
We have it and anecdotal information
Right.
from each of the headmasters with whom I've spoken. I'm really glad you raised that point, because one of the things I've learned since I've been here is that, and you probably already know that for those of you who've been here much longer, the private schools are precisely the same size now as they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. Okay. Let me give you an example, because I spent a lot of time learning about Villanova, which is the biggest draw certainly from our 8th grade, compared to the others. And Villanova, number one, is very small. It's 260 students, 4 grades. So average of 65 per grade. And their goal is to have essentially an equal of 3 parts enrollment. About a third from what they call the Ocean Corridor, 101 corridor, sort of from Camarillo up to Carpinteria, or whatever the other part would be. The second third are boarding students, predominantly not born in the United States, but somewhere. And the third is the Ojai Valley. So if you're talking about an average of 20 to 25 per grade, a third or so, it's not very many. The other schools are incredibly small. Desert Hill is very small, Ojai Valley School is small, and a great percentage of that population is boarding. Right? Thatcher is, not only is it small, but they take less than 10 per grade.
Yes.
Right? So I know people in this environment, not just Ojai, but around Ventura County, think we have this incredible intrusion of private schools. It's just not true. The reason that we have declining enrollment is because of housing prices going up, a small selection of homes to buy, intergenerational turnover not happening, or if it turns over to another couple that doesn't have children. Okay? So, and Andy's right. I've talked with some people who might build if land is available. Whether it's affordable housing or not so affordable housing, that's not going to turn around our enrollment situation.
Well, I would also like to point out that if you're looking at private schools, you'd have to look at private elementary schools, which I
Right.
think OVS and Oak Grove are the only elementaries.
Right, and they're just not, they're small, they're all very small. Now, we don't have that many kids either, so on a percentage basis, but, our average size grade is about 180, 85, in that range. I mean, the percentage of our students, and we'll get the information, but the percentage of our students who could go to our schools who don't is X, and I guarantee you, because I know some other communities, they have a high percentage that we do. For instance, there are some county school areas that have a huge number of parochial schools. K-8, we don't have that. We have 1 parochial high school, right? So you're always going to get a separation of some students, and they go to those schools for all kinds of reasons. You know what they are.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get the information.
So if there aren't enough to make a difference.
Some other information that might be helpful to me is sort of along the lines of what I read in the Ojai Quarterly a ways back, when the discussion started about possibly repurposing this campus. All kinds of ideas came out, and I'm sure a lot of ideas came to you that weren't in that quarterly. So I wonder, in previous discussions about closing schools, did any entities in the community come forward with ideas, plans, and so forth? And if so, those might be worthwhile for us to be aware of.
Sure. There was one. They came to the board in late 2008, early 2009, and interesting concept, not similar to what I told you before, mixed use, right? That could reemerge. It could, and maybe others. I did speak with Eric Good, by the way, a couple of years ago, and he's a very interesting guy, but he has not brought forth a formal proposal.
That would be for this property?
Yeah.
You're speaking.
But like other schools as well, for instance, there's a homeschool attempting to build their own campus over by St. Thomas Aquinas.
Oh, there?
They actually purchased land and they're raising funds. If there's groups like that that came looking for possible site at the district. That would be interesting for
Sure.
us to know as well.
Yeah, Mike, that hasn't happened since I've been here, at least. That's not bad. I know Valley Charter is going to be building a new campus.
Well, that's the one I'm talking about.
That's a
Oak
charter
Grove.
school. That's
Well,
charter
it's,
school.
yes, but it's a charter school for homeschoolers.
Yes, both are true. That's right. It is, that's right. Yes, that's true. And they have about 65 students, 70 students or so, the great majority of whom live in our district.
Right.
Charter schools can draw from outside the district,
Yes, they
right?
can.
In all contiguous districts.
Yes.
But if they're looking to build a campus, and we perhaps have a campus, that'd be good information to work with.
I think they're well down the road. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they've already purchased property in Myers Oaks.
Yeah, they have.
What was it, what's the school?
Valley Oak.
Valley Oak.
Valley Oak.
Valley Oak, oh, the one that's in the church right now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one of the factors that this committee can suggest is, and evaluate the impact would be of marketing the school district. For instance, I believe there's a lot of opportunity for us to bring in more students through marketing. But I don't know if that would be something that the school district wants to have its energies go toward, or if we want to figure out managing our school population within our now with district of choice and within things that we already have and do beyond expanding.
Another charter school was proposed a number of years ago and approved by the board. And I'd like to that idea as well. It's a very alternative high school.
No, Chris, there were two proposed, both rejected by the board.
No,
Are you
actually,
talking about recently or?
no, this is before this board, before you.
Oh, back one, okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
I know it personally because I'm the one who proposed it.
Well, this board
I'll disclose
rejected
that right now. But the board did approve it, and we actually made application to the
Oh, did
state
you?
under, I think it was a $500,000
So
starting
you put that in
grant.
your proposal, that's right.
And so I'd like to revisit that.
Well, no, the charter schools detract from the number of enrollment that we have for the district. So then there is the question.
No,
So
we
you
don't
can
get the
tell
money
me
from
the
that.
technicalities of it.
We have to give over state money to the charter school. We don't earn income from those students.
And then, so whether that's a plus or a minus for the entire district, we have to, the charter school, because to say if we were, did decide to close a school, one of the very possible results would be a charter school would come up from the parents who did not want their school to close. Because one of the laws about charter schools is that the school district has to provide the property for the school. I don't know all the intricacies of it, but it's just.
So we could be having some more problems rather than a benefit from it, right?
Possibilities. I know in 2008, there were studies that showed, in some instances, obviously not every situation is different, but in some instances, it actually costs the school district more to close a school than it does to keep it open. And I think we should look at some of those studies.
You spoke of marketing the Ojai schools. Do you have a sense of where the students would come from? I mean, we already heard we're not going to get anything substantial out of the private school population, whether the kids actually live here in the valley or not. But are you imagining that kids would come from, say, Ventura High Schools?
So Hank
or
could weigh in
Ventura
more specifically.
Elementaries, and they would actually come up here to Ojai to go to school?
So Ojai Unified School District is one of 3 school districts in Ventura County that are districts of choice. One is Oak Park, one is Santa Clara Elementary School District between Santa Paula and Fillmore, and the other one is the Ojai Unified School District. So they are allowed to accept within a certain number from each school district students from areas, from other
outside
school
the nominal
districts
boundaries
without
of the
getting
district.
the
Okay.
official release from their schools like you would in an ordinary inter-district school process. So there is an opportunity, but not only just for the district of choice possibilities, but also for what I think is a fairly large homeschooling community in the entire Ojai Valley. And I don't know that all parents who are exploring homeschooling even know all the homeschooling opportunities that are offered through the school district. So when I say marketing, it's not just district of choice, but it's exploring. So, and that's probably a question that the school board is going to have to grapple with if they would even want to, like I said, to set their, their decisions on what to do with their facilities based on what we have and not what the normal district of choice enrollment has been, et cetera. Or if they would really want to make, if they would want to examine what the possibilities are in terms of marketing, what that might be in bringing more students.
How that happens.
And I have a little bit of personal experience in terms of advertising the district of choice option to the Santa Paula community, and that was quite there was quite a big response. I mean, big in terms of, it's all relative.
Percentage of.
It's all relative, but yeah.
Right.
Through the board, does the district get revenue from continuation or alternative school?
Yes.
Sure. As opposed to a charter?
Yeah.
And this districts of choice business, if a student decides to leave Santa Paula or Ventura and come here, does the state money follow the child?
Yes.
Okay.
So then we should probably try to get a lot more kids from Oakview, because they have to travel to Ventura, right? But I know that Sunset School, a lot of people is very happy there. They say it's a great school, they have great programs, and it's K through 8. So maybe we should try to really see what are they doing different, or why is the people so happy about it when they rather send them there, even if they work in Ojai, which they have the possibility to send them up here.
Well, Sunset used to be a K-6, and now it's a K-8.
Yeah.
And I was on the 6th grade study committee that was looking at moving 6th grade up to junior high. And we had representatives from the Ventura School District at the meeting, and I said, so what was behind your decision to make Sunset a K-8? And the principal just smiled and said, we were tired of losing kids to the Ojai School District. So we talked to the parents said they wanted to keep their kids here, we made it a K-8.
Okay.
And that solved their problem. And so there are some basic decisions that can be made perhaps that would either attract kids to our district or retain them.
I see. It makes sense, I mean.
Yeah. And then they put Kelsey as the principal down there too.
Everywhere she goes, it's good.
I mean, that would be K-8, that would be immersion, that would be magnets, that would be all sorts of things that are far beyond what our charge is, but it would certainly affect what our enrollment is.
I think our charge is to decide what to recommend to the board with regard to what to do with the 5 elementary schools. And there's a lot of wiggle room there.
There's another question too about that 6th grade study committee that I have, which is, it was decided to not move forward because of money concerns. But is that on our minds at all in the deliberations that we make as we're talking about elementary schools? If we think that there's a possibility at some future date where the 6th graders would be moved over to Matilaha?
What do you think, Linda?
I think yes. I think that, especially with the new Common Core materials,
Being all 6,
it's all
7, 8.
it's all middle school materials.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably it would make it much better for the students, possibly. I mean, again, that's something that you guys have to look at, and you might think about that. But
I think personally, Glenn, and again, this is personally, and I think in the same terms as Marianne, is like, if you were ever to look at a 6, 7, 8, you would have to say what would make it more attractive so parents would be excited about 6, 7, 8 instead of scared or upset or emotional. The same thing. If you were going to close an elementary, why? What would make it exciting? Like, what would make me, even if they weren't, let's say I'm at a school And I hear that one of the other schools is next year gonna be a STEM magnet school. Wow, maybe I really wanna go over there. Or maybe it's gonna be an art, drama, dance, school. It's like, wow, okay, I'm upset my school's closing, but I'm really excited about the new opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that, and that as a committee, I hope that you guys absolutely use your brains, make the best, what you guys think would be the most exciting use of these facilities. I don't know what that means.
For the benefit of the students.
For the benefit of the students.
Glenn, I think there's sort of two technical answers there. One is the charge of the committee, and I think Steve put it well, is the board wanted a 7-Eleven committee to take a look at K through 6 enrollments, use of sites, etc. So obviously the 7th of those 7 grades, the highest, oldest kids, could be in a K-6 school. They could theoretically be part of a K-8 school, or they could be part of a K-5 school. So that's sort of one piece. The second piece is the numerical piece, and that is if we created a 6th through 8 school for whatever reason, 1/7 of the population is immediately moved. So you have 1/7 less need for school, approximately 1/7 less school space needed in whatever elementary schools continue to exist.
Yeah.
Did you determine in your committee that Matilah could fit 6 through 8?
Yeah, we did. That was
We did,
that was not
and
an
it would
issue.
take a little bit of jiggering, conversion of a room to a science lab probably. And we'd have to go back and walk back through it, but it looks like yes. Not with a lot of extra space, but yes.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Would you guys like to see the report from the committee that met on the 6th grade?
I'll send that to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That'd be good.
If in doubt, send it.
I'd be
I tried to
curious,
do that already.
I'd be curious on the number of combination classes at each school. Was that included? I couldn't.
There's a enrollment for each school site that has the teacher of the classroom with the enrollment per grade.
With the enrollment per grade.
Based on
per
grade, yeah.
teacher. I wasn't sure if that was the combination. That was showing the combination.
Yeah, so it would show so-and-so teacher, 2, 3, and it'd show her 2nd graders as well as her 3rd.
But it's not really broken down. One school has this many combination classes.
Oh, well, a sum of how many of these are combos, I don't believe.
Yes,
that's there.
the combo classes are all marked.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it's there. I mean, the numbers are
Right. No, I understand that, but I think she's actually asking for that number, which I don't think is there.
So it's showing like Tomalin with K first, 2nd,
Which school you at?
3rd, 4th. I don't know if that's
So it would just require counting, there's 2 at Summit, or requiring at Topa, there's, I think, 1.
And 5-6. The only one showing at Summit.
There's also a TKK. Right.
Let me tell you about that.
Like, I don't understand that. Like, Tomalin has K through 6. I go, that's
Oh, that's special ed,
education.
right.
Okay.
So each of the grade levels above the bottom one is special ed, but otherwise it's broken out by grade level, and if the name's in bold, then that represents a teacher who's teaching combination.
Oh, okay. That makes it easier.
It's
Marianne,
really a
Ash,
TKK.
6th grade.
Yeah.
Bold,
combos are
But here's the
LC,
teacher.
Ash.
So each box is a teacher.
Who's that?
And then in there. it tells you
6th grade at Marianne.
Grade. I'm sorry,
Mine's not
grade,
bold.
so you do it. Reading upside down.
Maybe it just is a printing error. Because, yeah, mine's not bold.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, but we can just calculate from this chart.
Yeah.
One that's easy to find
Easy
teacher.
enough to calculate.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, yeah,
I have it, but I didn't know.
Does anybody else?
14 total. And we can provide, email it out
14 total and
across the
Across the
district, right? 31622 if you're going from left to right in the school listing.
All right. Do we have any other questions or comments tonight before we go?
Well, are we going to have a particular focus or emphasis for our next meeting? We do have, it seems like, at least 500 pages of materials that will now be coming forward. Should we?
Decide what we're going to chew on next.
Right.
Yeah, I'm open to suggestions on where we go next. We have a suggestion that we're going to have community meetings, school site visits. Our next meeting is coming up in less than 2 weeks, right?
But it'll be noticed, so it'll be a community meeting if people in the community wish to attend.
Yeah, of course.
Will we have available to us the operating costs and everything by?
Absolutely.
Prior to that meeting?
Yeah, I'll make sure
So I
that-
would propose that that would be the next item of discussion. I think it's important to understand like how the schools are operating on a more concrete basis than just the numbers. Personally.
I was going to suggest the same thing. I think it's a very good thing to get a handle on, to juxtapose the enrollment of the schools and then the cost of running those schools.
Yeah, I think we're talking faculty, academic staff, whether it's counselors or principal or whatever, and facilities staff.
Absolutely.
The three categories of labor costs that you have?
Yes, but
Are there
also-
more than that?
But utility costs and the like.
Oh, yes, that too, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, we can also put another column to show the capital outlays necessary, both for ongoing maintenance and.
Yeah, we
Right.
can look at.
Well, we had that for Southmore, but
Yeah, that sounds
extract that out, lay it so we can see it clearly.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe we chew on that, we can compare the schools, what do they cost, what do they need, right?
Would you like, what would take a little bit of work, and it's something I'm happy to do, but we currently don't have something like transportation attributed to each individual school site. We have a transportation department where expenditures are based. Would it be helpful for us to also have all the information on how many students are using transportation, so we could also provide, if we say 20 out of the 200 students, let's round off, who utilize transportation services are from San Antonio, therefore 10% roughly of transportation cost should go to that school site. Would that be part of the equation that you'd like to see? Or
Sure.
Okay.
I think also-
That's a
also-
rough approximation, because obviously some school sites being further away have higher transportation costs potentially, but
And also some kind of rough estimation of cost per student for transportation. I know it varies from site to site, but something where we can
Yeah,
juggle that around as
absolutely.
well.
Well, you've also got nutrition services.
Right.
And just, grass, what do you call it, maintenance? or-
Right.
Grounds.
Grounds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That'd be a lot to chew on.
That's a lot to chew on.
Making that
Yes.
comparison.
And trying to pick our next meeting, which is probably half the evening.
1 hour on that.
Every hour, 10 minutes of discussion, we're done.
Good point.
Appreciate your patience on that.
Yep.
All right, good, okay, we have some marching orders for the next meeting, and
Absolutely.
we have a date and a...
I have a suggestion.
Great.
Part of the operating costs are covered by PTOs and PTOs, and that's a significant amount per site. So that might be something that you might want to gather as well.
I think when we talk about the costs, we ought to be talking about the district's outlays. And
Yeah, and that might come into the other groups that are involved, but it is a factor, like how much support does a school have from an external body? But yeah, that is an interesting thing to have as an adjunct.
When you get the cost for salaries, even those salaries are going to look like they're paid for by the district because they're paid, the PTO gives money to the district, right, to pay those salaries. So you're going to see those salaries already. The amount of PTO money is already in there, you won't be able to, so I guess what you want to do is pull it out, because the numbers you're going to get from the district include the money that the PTOs have put in.
Right, because the PTOs give to the district.
Exactly, and they pay the salaries.
Well, right, in some cases, each PTO has a slightly different setup. As far as employee costs, you're right, absolutely correct. As far as some other sorts of contributions that PTOs may be making or other service organizations within the community, some of those are not, the funding source is not coming through the district. It's being given directly to the school site, and so we wouldn't necessarily have the financial information for a expenditure at the high school that was done through an NPA account as opposed to through the OUSD accounts.
But as far as salaries, you could pull.
Salaries, absolutely.
You already have that.
Absolutely correct.
And I actually have another question with respect to that. So are we going to focus on the 5 elementary schools, or are we going to look at, we're looking at, right. So I'm not going to be looking at necessarily Nordocs. Okay, I just want to check that.
Absolutely. No,
Is the
absolutely.
salary's going to be a very fair understanding, because you're going to have your long tenured teachers who are making more than your newer teachers?
Is it skewed by site?
A little bit. Marianne's right. It's never a perfect equation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that looking at salaries, you certainly can look at full-time equivalents, and that's already in the chart, right? So you know how many teachers there are in each elementary school. We certainly can give you the average salary per teacher. That would really be a fair way.
That would be the fair and accurate way to compare. Then you compare apples to apples.
Yeah. We have this year we have a disproportionate number of younger, newer teachers in Miramonte because we had a higher number of retirements last year. So I think that's a better way to do it is look at the average.
Plus, as the students move, so will the teachers,
Yeah,
so
sure.
that wouldn't really help. I mean, if you look at closing a school site, you're not putting teachers out of work, you're moving teachers with students.
Yeah. May or may not be true of people who care for the facilities.
Just beyond your question of the 5 schools, I mean, we might want to look at Chatwell, for example, bring that into the equation because it ties this.
I'm sorry,
That's how we started talking, at the same time.
Yeah, you were saying?
Well, you were saying that perhaps a groundskeeper may not have that position at another campus if a campus is close, although I know the groundskeepers circulate throughout the entire district, but in terms of hours, there may be less hours there, if not a whole position. But you might have an administrative position that's not going to be filled if the school is closed.
I presume 5 principals right now.
4. We have a joint summit in San Antonio are administered by the same principal.
And then secretarial might also not be allocated. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, some say, and you were saying, Chris?
I'm saying, we're not looking at Nordhoff and Matilha, should consider chaperones if that needs fit in somewhere.
Because there are better sites that might be
Just be
better
open to
utilized,
that.
yeah.
Not just limited to just elementary schools, but how
Yeah.
other purposes could be put to those sites.
Actually, maybe that needs one point of clarification. My understanding was that we are focusing exclusively on really the elementary school utilization, and if we were going to continue with 5 or something different, so I'm not sure I
I
understand.
think his only point is that what if we were to close an elementary school and then decide to move Chaparral there? So we would want to have sort of an understanding of whether that would actually be an appropriate.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
There aren't necessarily any boundaries on repurposing.
Sure, absolutely.
It's an interesting question because, we're not really talking, our charge isn't to look at Chaparral, but our charge is to look at facilities use on these elementary school campuses with this knowledge in the back of our minds that this whole property may lease out at some point, which means the bus yard, administrative offices, Chaparral, where do those go? And that certainly can figure into our discussion, right? About what happens with elementary campuses.
That's part of the
Closed
expansive
or
view of
otherwise.
repurposing too.
Yeah.
We're looking at what to do with the facilities, not necessarily thinking of them as 5 separate and independent elementary schools. And forever be it thus, so.
I'm wondering how this work of this committee is being communicated to our school sites.
I can personally tell you that I will be meeting with our PTO, with a group of people, probably every Monday after it was Monday in this instance because it's Thursday, but sometime after the meeting, just to kind of, they want to just sound off with me and talk to me.
Which school is that?
This is San Antonio. So that's how I'm going to communicate.
And you should encourage them to come to all of our notice meetings.
Yeah, and we did talk about that,
Yeah.
so.
Is that the regular PTO meeting?
No, that'll be just us meeting with whoever, just whoever wants to come on a Monday morning after drop off.
As long as not too many of us are there.
No, it'll just be me. It's just, and it literally is just me talking with them and them asking questions.
I guess one thing that comes to mind is that we were scheduled to finish at 8:30. It's important to me that I have a block schedule that I know timing, so either we stick to the timing or we have to extend our meeting time. But, 10 minutes is like, okay, but 20 minutes is like, okay, what are we doing
We're
here?
coming to the end, yeah, because I do have a feeling we could be here
Right.
continuing to raise issues.
On that, I also was thinking, especially if we're looking at the elementary cost on an average basis, or average staffing level based on the FTEs and based on the current staffing level, just in case, which that may take us 3 meetings to go over, but in case it takes us 45 minutes, I would hate for the precious time that we actually are able to all find together for us to adjourn after only 45 minutes. I would want us to have something else to really make sure that we're best using our time. So I don't know if maybe it even works out logistically for us to say, here's who's up, or what the topic up to bat, and here's something on deck in case we have time. Although if we don't get there, we're going to try to have a hard stop time to respect everyone's. But that way we, I don't know, maybe for the delinquent group studies, we want to also have just ready to discuss. And if we get to the opportunity, then we're all prepared, or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. I do think that in the next meeting, that will take us 2 hours probably to go through those numbers, plus I think the data and needs to. I'm thinking we should go through all of it at once, because it'll give us a sense of the actual material efficiency of the schools, which I think is important to know. Like, I think that's the first information we need. How are they operating?
Right.
As far as timing of meetings, I think I think we should assume a couple hours, 2 hours. I mean, it's an hour and a half is a very short period of time, and 2 hours, as you just pointed out, we could go on forever on this stuff. So we do have to have a hard stop time, but I think we should extend the time.
7 to 9.
7 to 9.
7:05.
Be realistic. We're always going to be up against the time.
And something to factor in is, as our meetings progress, it may be more likely that we have community comment or public comment that also may take up a portion of our deliberative time.
Sure.
It's going to be a
So I feel like
role of our chair to.
I feel like, some of this falls to
manage
me in terms of being able to build an agenda and anticipate how much time things are going to take, and then keep us to that time frame.
Yep.
So I take on that responsibility.
Thanks, Glenn.
Yeah. I mentioned having the delinquent group actually come and be available to answer questions. Is that something that the rest of you think we need to do? I see Marianne shaking her head, no.
Yeah, I don't have a sense of that either.
You don't think so either?
Yeah, I don't have a sense.
I have some questions, but I think those can be answered maybe by board members or the people here.
Yeah, I think time's better spent putting the question to
And we could
Andrew,
review
and let them get the
the
information, get it back to us.
The delinquent group did speak to the board.
Twice.
So we could have a review of those whenever they spoke, and people could do that independently.
Okay.
You can get on the website.
And you can be here for the Tuesday meeting, Hank?
I will be here whenever you want me.
All right, anything else?
Without objection, we're adjourned, he said.
There it is. Okay, thank you.